Honey Sound Broadcasting, an affiliate of the Bilko Media Network.
So, Bitcoin. Wanted to do this for a while. Something I've always kind of known about, but unfortunately never really jumped into. But this is going to be a good review or discussion, what have you.
Go Bits!
My research in this included reading one article about Bitcoin mining as well as however much I can cram reading the wiki page in 2 minutes before this call started.
Top-notch research. I gotta say, I really handed out to the team at Bilko Media. They really do a bang-up job.
Yes, they do. I wanted to get more in, but I just had such a busy day at work. Right before you said, let's do this in 30, I was still working, but I knew I'd be free by the time this started, so.
So you're coming in hot.
Coming in hot. But see, I've been keeping tabs on this topic for a while, and I can have a good conversation with just my own previous knowledge, so we should be fine. I wanted to start off with a little history lesson here, and I guess Bitcoin started back in what, 2009-ish?
Sure.
Let me verify the date. Yes, 2009, when it all went down. I probably first heard about it shortly after that. Because I definitely remember being in your old room at our old apartment when I first heard about Bitcoin, which would have been 2009.
Ah.
Or early 2010. Why don't we dive into your history with this a little bit? When did you first hear about it, and what did you think?
So
What are your thoughts? What are your initial thoughts on the whole Bitcoin thing?
Well, I knew about it, but I gotta say I didn't really get into it until about, or like start even researching it until maybe like 5 years ago. So like, it's just well after it, and a couple years after it had kind of established itself. And I remember just hearing about Bitcoin mining and being very confused by what was happening and
how that works.
Also the implications of what it is to mine something that doesn't exist, but does have a exponential Bitcoin to energy required, power curve that
Yes.
you need to mine these coins. And like I was reading about specialized chips that were made, especially like $5,000 chips that were made. So already at that point, like the infrastructure was there to support the what is either the future of all monetary currency or just the biggest tulip bubble of all time. Anywhere in between those is your guess and my guess.
Yes.
I don't know.
So, well, why don't we talk about how Bitcoin actually works then? Because you got into the mining bit,
Yeah.
pun intended.
Yes.
So,
but beyond the mining, I didn't really like research it, and I tried to look into blockchain, and I just remember being completely stumped by like
what it is.
algorithm. Yeah, because I just thought all of this was just like, oh, you take one big prime number, multiply it by another big prime number, one's the key, one's the lock, and no, that's not it at all.
In the simplest form to describe to a layman, yes. Essentially what you're trying to do when you mine Bitcoin is essentially find prime numbers.
Okay.
And there are only, but how many prime numbers are out there, right? There's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever because of the algorithm that creates it. And so in order to find the blockchain, basically new blocks to add to the chain, you have to solve these complex math problems to solve the algorithm that then creates the blocks that then says this is your coin. And the blockchain itself is just a digital ledger. Think of it as a big Word document that has all of the transactions that ever occur, but they're all saved within like the math.
Okay. So say I'm little Timmy orphan boy, with my pencil and paper mining my first Bitcoin. All right. So I'm writing down the math equations that I'm going to solve.
Yes.
To earn the Bitcoin to feed my poor widowed family I have to feed in this Dickensian nightmare that I live in. So I'm mining my Bitcoin on a piece of a pencil paper on a piece of paper physically. What does that look like? Is that even possible? Is that even
It's
possible to
probably
describe?
impossible to put this into perspective. And I took this quote from an article I was reading earlier today, where some dude, I think last year, so this was last year, tried to use his own laptop to mine for Bitcoin, and he realized that at his current processing power, it would take him 1,197 years to mine one Bitcoin.
So
So that's why you need all these specialized supercomputers. Otherwise, it will take lifetimes for you to do on your own computer. And it just gets exponentially harder, right? Because you're trying to
uh-huh.
find that next prime number.
Yes.
So right now we have 16 million bitcoins known, and there can only be 21 million bitcoins known. And I also saw that on our current projection, we're not targeted to find all the Bitcoin until about 100 years from now. So that's the pace we're on, and everybody's competing for that last X number of coins yet to be found. But every time someone finds a new one, it gets harder and harder and exponentially harder to get the next one.
It's interesting that there will never be like a Bitcoin Saudi Arabia where just like someone discovers, well, hey, actually no, there will be because one guy who bought like a whole bunch, bought like 17 Bitcoins for like the price of a pizza
Yeah.
back in 2010. He's going to discover he has a Bitcoin wallet full of these Bitcoins, and he's going to be the most. That's a solid movie plot right
There
there.
is,
Get out
there
your pencil
is.
and paper.
I've heard of several horror stories over the years of people saving their Bitcoin to cold storage, which is basically putting it on a thumb drive so it's offline and it can't be hackable.
Uh,
And people like losing it or throwing it away, or some guy who I bought 100 coins when they were a penny back in 2008, but I forgot about it and it's been in my you know old laptop in the shed. And then when I'm like, oh my god, Bitcoin's $1,000, I'm a millionaire, right? And you go out and you try to get it and try to boot it up, and your hard drive's dead. Well, you lost those coins. Now there's a big
yes.
question about what happens to that, because if they're only going to be 21 Bitcoin, and these coins are lost and can never go back into the exchange, does that technically mean you have to subtract those out of the ledger, or are they just gone forever? Like nobody will know what happened to them because you can't reconnect it.
Yeah. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around what exactly makes these computer programs hard. Because I think that we've all seen like a computer program that is like a prime number sieve,
Hmm.
right? Like SIVIE, where you just filter out, like, you say, okay, run increment this number by 1, and if it's divisible by 2, throw it out, and if it's
Hmm.
divisible by 5, throw it out, if it's divisible by 10, throw it out, and on and on and on and on. You take away the numbers that you already dealt with that aren't prime, and you use that to filter out. And so they've gotten to very large prime numbers. Like, I think that they
Yes.
printed out books, these massive books, and it's like multiple Encyclopedia Britannicas full of like all the prime numbers, and it's like just an entire bookshelf, and it only goes up to, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 decimal places. I don't know, but the point is that we've been doing this for a while. What makes Bitcoin in 2009 so special?
It's
Because
it's the first time anybody's ever tried to attempt to use it as a currency. The
okay,
blockchain existed before Bitcoin, but it was more of like just specialized math uses. Like it wasn't used for currency.
well, maybe back up a little. What is blockchain then? Like, what
Blockchain
is
is that digital ledger that captures every transaction ever into the math
okay?
equation. It's just an
Okay,
algorithm. It's an algorithm. Think of it like a graph on like a graphing calculator. But that graphing
okay,
calculator somehow coded into that graph is every transaction ever.
okay. So
And
so
each
basically,
block in the blockchain is its own has its own history. So each block, I can't recall if there's multiple Bitcoins within a block or one block per Bitcoin, but
Okay.
that's why you keep adding to the blockchain, and that's why you can
Okay.
keep, you know.
So if I go out to my local 7-Eleven Bitcoin eatery or whatever, and I buy a hot dog, a month-old hot dog with one shiny new Bitcoin, okay? That hot dog Bitcoin exchange is recorded in the math that the blockchain.
It's recorded on the blockchain, and the blockchain is hard coded in through the algorithm that is the blockchain. Somehow the algorithm captures that transaction, and it captures the transaction between the two parties. Then it's public knowledge. Anybody can look up any transaction ever. You don't know who the people are because everybody's using usernames, but you can see the transactions between everybody within the math.
Okay, so that sounds horrifying and exactly the opposite of what this is billed as, cryptocurrency. Because if I can associate your transactions to a username, I might not know exactly who you are or whatever, but if I find out that you keep on buying Twinkies at the local 7-Eleven in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I'm going to know to look for the Twinkie shop in Pennsylvania and look for you. Like that.
In theory, I guess that's a possibility. Again, I don't know the specifics here, but the ledger is completely public. Anybody can look up
Okay.
anything of all the transactions that have occurred.
So, but blockchain is an equation
That's being solved, from what I can tell. So the
Okay.
blockchain, like I said, it's the math right behind it.
What
all.
does it mean to solve I know what it means to do an algorithm. I know what it means to perform an algorithm, because an algorithm is a series of steps that you perform in a certain order.
Right.
But what does it mean to solve an algorithm? I don't know what that means.
I guess it's maybe I said it wrong. It's more of like solving the math to find the block that you can add to the blockchain, aka the digital ledger.
Okay. I feel like there is a
You're solving math problems. And every time you solve, like I said, the best way to explain it is you're finding a prime number. Every time you find a prime number, you find a notebook. Okay? And every time you find that notebook, you attach it, you throw it in the pile of the other notebooks, aka the blockchain.
But you're not just solving for prime numbers. You're also solving for, what is the prime number?
Oh, it's much more it's much more complex than just saying, oh, you're just solving for prime numbers. That was just an example. You're not actually solving prime numbers.
Yeah, but it's also in order to find the next blockchain, you also have to solve something that has a mathematical component or a representation of Bob buying a pizza, of Alice buying a can of Coke. Those things are transcribed mathematically into this math problem to solve. So wouldn't the math problem get harder the more Bitcoin is used rather than?
Well, no, not as Bitcoin is transacted, because the ledger, it's almost like a spreadsheet, right? You go down one by one row, and you just keep going down, and somehow it's transcribed in the code. How that actually happens, I don't know, but it's an unlimited ledger that when you solve the block, somehow it creates the space for you to log all this stuff into in the algorithm that you created via the math.
Okay. Okay. All right. So
you gotta take our word for it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Black magic. Got it. Voodoo spirits.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. All right. So that's Bitcoin mining.
That's
and
mining.
The process of how that's done. Can you get into like Bitcoin like as a monetary supply, as a unit of currency?
Yeah, so let's get into that. Well, first on the mining bit, I wanted to mention one more thing that I thought was pretty funny. If current trends continue, and as of 2017, they estimated that the amount of power it took to mine the Bitcoin that all the people were mining in the world was enough electricity to power Ireland.
Yes.
And if trends continue, by 2020, all of Earth's electricity will be consumed by mining Bitcoin. This whole thing is unsustainable.
I would really, if there's a nature spirit, say, of like the great coral reef, I would just like to go to him or her and just say, well, I'm sorry you're all dying and the oceans are getting bleached, but you gotta understand we really needed all this power to solve math equations about people buying pizza. So
Right. Well, here's the
sorry
thing.
they're not
Whenever
on the
you
ice cap
whenever you
anymore.
solve the block, whenever you solve the next block, you get like 15 Bitcoin right now.
Okay, all right.
But every time you solve that block, you're gonna get less and less each block you
Yes.
find. So that's why it gets exponentially harder to find. It not only gets exponentially harder to find, but it also your reward is less and less and less.
But doesn't this have an economic shutoff switch where if the cost to just like in ordinary physical mining, if the cost to mine a substance is
Cost
more
prohibitive?
than the cost to sell,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
cost prohibitive, then they're not going to mine it no matter how much is in there.
Right.
So
Well,
maybe
that's
this
why we
whole,
have
like,
that's why we have like 100 years worth of mining left, because it takes into account, the computer superpower growth as well as, just people's ability to do it.
wow. Okay. All right. So
But
Bitcoin
mining
island.
for most people, mining is just a pointless way or a pointless and useless endeavor to get your own Bitcoin. The best way to do it is to buy it. So
Yes.
back in the day, 2009, Bitcoin was trading for like 0.001 cents.
Yes.
And you talk about as a currency. Well, at first it was just a currency, right? You buy Bitcoin, you in theory pay for pay for goods and services using Bitcoin, but that didn't really come about until 2010ish, maybe 2011, a couple of years later. But the promise was there. That's the whole reason why people bought into it in the beginning, was because the promise of the future of, oh, these can be an alternative to US dollars. However, people started to realize the volatility of this thing, because it would be gaining, 20% here and, lose 30% there, and then all of a sudden it gains 50% in one day. And people started to use it as an investment strategy. And that's when it really started to take off. And I remember when
Oh
Bitcoin
my lord.
and I remember when Bitcoin went to $100, and this is when I first heard about it. Bitcoin went to $100 and then crashed to $5, all within like a couple days. It was trading at like $1 or less, and then it blew up to $100. So that's a 100x return on your investment had you bought Bitcoin in the early days. But then within a matter of days, it crashed back down to $5. Now that's still a times 5 return, but the promise was there. And this is when I first heard about Bitcoin, and I was like, you know what? I could throw $100 at this thing, because what happens if it goes back to $100? I'm in the green, right?
Yep.
So I did all kinds of research and trying to figure out just how to buy these stupid things. And it was very, very sketchy. It was very not well put together. You had to go through Mt. Gox at that time. I think that was the only exchange, which we can get into what Mt. Gox is in a minute here. But it was very sketchy. And as much as I wanted to do it, because I'm like, man, if it went to $100 once, there's a chance it could go through it again. Now, had I actually gone through with it and purchased these Bitcoin back in the day, that would be worth, I think, 1.6 million today or something like that.
Well, I can totally sympathize with okay. So I've never heard of Mount Gox. I'm sure it's lovely this time of year. But and like
right.
the
Well, because
idea
in
of
order to
entering your
buy
credit card
Bitcoin, yeah,
information
you have to
in one of those sites.
you have to attach your bank account, which is what scared me away ultimately. Was
Yeah.
you had to attach your bank account to this thing, and I'm like, what?
Right.
That's very sketchy, and
Right.
I didn't really go through with it. But like I said, well, let me do some math here, because I know Bitcoin's been all over the place even recently. But that would have been 20 Bitcoin. I would have wanted to buy at, let's say, $15,000. It was only 300K, so it'd be worth 300K today.
Oh, 100 bucks would be 300K.
$100 investment when I wanted to buy it. would be 300K today. Now,
Yeah.
in between
You
there,
can
would I have
always-
sold it?
You can
know,
always play that game.
you can always play that game. Yes, you can always say, would I have sold it along the way? Because if you've been following it along as I have, it at one point, I think in like 2012, it went to $1,000 and then crashed back to 100, and then it went back up to like 200, and then it crashed again. It's been all over the place, and so the whole Bitcoin thing really took mainstream starting late last year because it started out about $1,000 earlier in the year, and then by the end of the year, it went to almost 20,000 per coin. Again,
perfectly normal currency.
Perfectly normal currency. But I can specifically think of 3 other instances over the past number of years where I seriously wanted to get into this thing. Not just Bitcoin, but other cryptocurrencies too. And every time I've gone to do it, I couldn't figure it out, or I got too scared because it seems so sketchy, and I never got through with it. Which was I keep kicking myself for not following through because it's like, well, heck, it would have been worth so much more today.
Let's just take a step back here and realize that in a informative podcast, you were trying to inform me of something, and you're kicking yourself, and you can't describe what's inside the black box. All right, okay, at a fundamental level, there's a black box that we don't know how inside of Bitcoin, that we don't know what's inside that, we don't know what makes it tick, and you're like, oh man, I should have just thrown hundreds of dollars into this black box that I have no understanding of. Oh, I'm such a moron. No, you're not. You did the right thing. If you understood it, and if you said, oh, I think that this is a worthy investment, then yeah, you should have done it. But you don't fucking know what, and I don't know what it is either. Nobody knows, and nobody who's buying it does either. And that's the whole point. I think I think behind Bitcoin is nobody understands what makes the box.
I generically understand it.
Well, yeah, and
but I don't understand the hard details.
Well, I mean, I'd want to buy one.
No, that's I mean, right, but it's like, you take flights across the country and you don't know how they really work, but they still, whatever. Anyway, the whole point is.
You're right.
The whole point is people are seeing this now as an investment strategy versus actual coins.
Yes.
Because otherwise, why isn't the dollar exploding at an exponential rate, right?
No.
It doesn't work that way. And so people are seeing this as an investment tool. That, in theory, and this is not, I don't think, out of the box, but Bitcoin could potentially go $1 million a coin. And they were saying this back in 2010 or 11. If you do the math, that's only like 22 trillion of market cap.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
not that
much. I mean, the U.S. stock market is somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And it's plausible that it could theoretically get that high. I'm not saying it will. I doubt it will anytime soon. But in theory, since there's only going to be 21 million coins ever, it's in the realm of a possibility. But, and this is something we haven't really touched on either, there are so many other crypto coins popping up. Bitcoin is by far the most dominant. I think they have like a 60% market share over all crypto coins. And you can look at the cryptocurrency exchange rates and see, the different breakouts and how much money is invested into each one. I just find this whole thing fascinating. And like I said, I never really got into trading it itself. However, I did take the dive because I knew we were going to do this review and I wanted the full experience. So I threw $100 into Bitcoin and I threw $100 into Ethereum. And before that money even hit my account, I was up 60%. And, it was an interesting experience going through it all.
Do you think that there is a classic bubble going on here?
And there very
speculative
well
bubble.
could be. But here's the thing. There's been bubbles and crashes throughout all of Bitcoin's history. But every time it crashes, like 70%, it always explodes back, far more than it's ever been. So, we go back to our, discussion of, is this the future or is this just a bubble? I mean, who knows? I threw $200 into this thing just to kind of play around with it. If I lose all $200 and it crashes to zero, so what? I was at $200. But, if it doubles, which is certainly plausible because I'm already up 60%, like.
I'm just trying to imagine it, like, what the start of, because you can really, it's hard to kind of compare this to anything. Maybe, like, in history, maybe the start of new nations and, if you're printing the dollar in 1783, like, maybe you have, like, this sort of, speculative bubble and crash and stuff like that. But I don't really know too much about history of monetary policy in nations. I mean, it's not.
Right. Well, that's one of the I think, how do I say it? It's one of the draws to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is because it's outside of inflation. There can only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. That's it.
Okay, so yes, but one thing that I've noticed is when I look at Bitcoin, I see like very fractionated, like people like I bought this with 0.004 Bitcoins, right? Is Bitcoin infinitely fractionable?
I believe so. See, at first, I didn't think it was. I thought you had to buy and sell whole Bitcoin. And so it's like, why would I ever want to buy into Bitcoin? Because then I have to buy like, $1,000 worth of pizza in order to sell my one coin. Yeah. When so, I didn't realize it was fractionable until I went to buy this stuff. Because I looked in April. I wanted to buy Ripple and I wanted to buy into Bitcoin, but I could never figure it out. In August, I wanted to buy into Ripple again and I wanted to buy into Bitcoin, and I could never figure it out. And then finally, late December, I'm like, I know we're going to do this review. I want to throw a little bit of this because I've been trying to do it for years and it just never got around. And then I finally found a site that I felt safe doing. And that's when because I didn't even know, like I was just kept looking into it because I wanted to buy like some of the smaller ones. Like Ripple's trading for like 22 cents. It was trading for 6 cents when I wanted to buy it, but now it's 22 cents. And so like, okay, I can buy one 22-cent coin, right? And be fine with it. But then I realized that, you can buy fractions of a coin and you can trade and sell fractions of a coin. So even if it is infinitely, fractured like that, the value will not change, but the exchange rate between US dollar and Bitcoin will. And that's where your inflation comes into play. Because if the US dollar, inflates through the roof, your exchange rate goes up. But those who have Bitcoin are in the clear because they're not affected by inflation. If Bitcoin was trading 1 for 1, dollar for dollar, and the US dollar, goes through the roof due to inflation, now instead of $1, I get $30. So that value doesn't alter.
Yes. I think that I think that you could talk about a large part of the weirdness of Bitcoin and part of the high volatility of Bitcoin, I think, is people trying to dial into what exactly this thing is. Because out here in meat space, yes, you can buy your Silk Road opium, I don't know, whatever, like crazy online Bitcoin stuff you can buy. I mean, you can buy stuff from Bitcoin in real life. I realize that, but it's still not a thing. It's not a.
It's very early in its infancy.
Very early.
Not too many people are accepting it, and people are giving it up. People are even giving it up because the volume isn't there.
Yeah. So
we're still a long way for actual currency adoption.
Right.
But the reason why the price has just kept skyrocketing is because people are seeing it as an investment strategy, not as an actual functioning currency.
Yes, and that is the biggest indictment, I think, because you can't have a currency where I walk up to the guy and I buy a Snickers on the gas station and I have to check my phone because do I have to pay him $36 or $12? What do I have to do?
Yeah.
What's everything worth in this particular minute, in this hour, today? Yeah, so it's not, and I think that a lot of what's driving this is the complete lack of yield, and anywhere else in markets are so
And that could be
depressed.
too. People are looking for new outs, and
Yes.
when
Well, you
Bitcoin
just
is
said it yourself.
when Bitcoin is
There-
going up and down 20% a day, there's some money to be made if you do it right.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing is you and everybody else is basically treating this as a roulette wheel, you know, and it is, but so if you wanna make a coin called Billcoin, what's to stop that from being just as viable and just as legitimate as Bitcoin? I mean, the
Well,
thing is that I'm seeing.
I'll tell you how, because thinking about this a lot when Bitcoin really took off last year, I thought of my own, let's call it Billcoin. I didn't give it a name yet, but I do have a strategy that I wanted to bring up here. And I think it's pretty ingenious.
I only accept Billcoin.
Yes. So, what causes the volatility, right? What causes bubbles? What causes all this volatility? Let's focus on the cryptocurrency market. Prices go up, prices go down. But what if I were to say to you, what if the prices never go down? Let me say this. Let's say we have an ICO, which is the initial coin offering, is what they're calling it, when you come up with a new coin. And I'm going to sell, I have 1 billion coins I'm going to sell for a penny each. All right? That gives me $10 million off the bat. I'm a millionaire. Now, every time a coin is traded, and you can fracture this, the price increases by, say, let's 0.01%. It never goes down. The price is what the price is. People buy it because the price can only go up, and people sell it because they want access to cash. It would be the equivalent of saying, let's say you go to Walmart and you want to buy a toothbrush. What is the price of a toothbrush at Walmart? Let's say it's $1. Well, every time somebody buys a toothbrush, the price of that toothbrush increases by an X percent. So that the next time somebody comes in, they want a toothbrush, guess what, pal? It's 0.01% more than the last time. And it just never ends. It just keeps going on and on and on and on. Because when you're Walmart and you control that one product, you can set whatever price you want.
This sounds like hell.
This sounds amazing.
No, because what I'm gonna do then is I'm gonna walk in.
Yep.
I'm gonna buy 10,000 toothbrushes.
Yep.
And then resell them.
Yep.
And I'm just gonna churn that to
Yep.
make money.
Why
Right?
not? Why not? As long as somebody's willing to buy and you're willing to sell, transaction
Because
happens.
the
Price can never go down unless there are no buyers. Then it's worth zero. But that's the risk you take.
I mean, sure. I love Billcoin. I only deal in Billcoin. I don't really know. I'm trying to see in my head, how that would work out.
Because why would you want to sell it? Well, you sell it to make a profit. Why would you want to buy it? Well, it's only going to go up. That encourages buyers and it encourages sellers. Trade in U.S. currency outside of inflation. There's only 1 billion coins ever. If I sell this idea, I instantly get $10 million myself. So I don't care what happens after that.
All right. Okay. All right. So now we're talking about the ICO of Billcoin here. This is an interesting idea. I maybe want to revisit it later, but there's a lot of stuff going on about this idea that I don't think I'm qualified to talk about or ponder. But one thing that I have pondered, Bill, and I am very curious is, so say you start your Billcoin, okay, and you have these $1 billion or billion Billcoins that you're selling for a penny each or whatever, and that nets you, boom, overnight, instantly you're a millionaire, right? Okay, so what's to stop you, Mr. Billionaire, Mr. Bill Millionaire, from just hopping off to the Cayman Islands with a suitcase full of cash and just never ever just abandoning this whole damn thing and leaving everybody out to dry when they realize that
no. See, that's the beauty of the blockchain, because you still log everything on blockchain, but it's all peer-to-peer, so it's all just public computers running their thing. It's just like Bitcoin. There's no centralized anything. Nobody's running Bitcoin. It just exists.
Okay, so nobody is the creator of
Well, here's
Bitcoin.
the thing. There is a creator of Bitcoin, but nobody knows who he is, and his or its account, because nobody knows if it's a group or not, they have like $3 billion worth of Bitcoin, because everybody can see this is how much they have. It's a public ledger, but nobody knows who that person is.
Oh, this doesn't sound shady at all. God, yeah.
Well, that's the other side of Bitcoin. What really took this off in the beginning wasn't even like the investment stuff. It was, drug dealers and the mafia, all buying and selling their services, through the dark web. Because it is so anonymous, and you don't really know who these people all are. All you know is you're getting your money, they're getting their money, everybody shakes hands and parts ways. But nobody knows who anybody is.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a fascinating topic, I think. The whole cryptocurrency craze is just a fascinating thing.
Okay, so I think one thing that I walked out of talking about this with you is that I'm now convinced that like Bitcoin is a classic speculative bubble. Like, I mean, it's just so obvious on the face of it.
Yes.
But what really interests me is that there's no bank that can take your money and then skedaddle.
Right. That's the beauty of having a public ledger where everybody knows what's what. That you can't change, right? It's math. You can't change math.
So
nobody can scrub out and erase a line because it's all like hard coded into that algorithm somehow. That is derived from the math that is the blockchain.
Mm-hmm. That is interesting. Because that's one of the things that I thought that like some of this has got to be that. Some of this has got to be I'm starting up, poop coin,
right, because that's the thing. There's nothing stopping anybody from starting any coin services. And where that money goes, from the initial coin offering, I think it just goes into the creator's pocket. Like I don't understand beyond that.
Yeah, but see, that's what I'm talking about. And like at a certain point in this whole affair, there's this unproven thing that you don't know if it's even going to work. And one guy who does have like a ton of like cold hard cash, that people have given him. Mm-hmm. But I'm just
Well, it's not much difference than buying and selling gold. Like in theory, there's a finite amount out there. It's getting harder and harder to find the gold. I'm buying into gold because it should go up in value because there's only a finite amount on Earth. Bitcoin is the same thing, only it's digitized. There's nothing real you're buying. You're buying, a transaction on a blockchain.
Mm-hmm. I think that one thing that's different, though, is that gold is very divisible, but it's not infinitely
divisible. Yeah, I can see that.
But we haven't really hit a point where, well, I don't know. I guess that's what like jewelry and precious gems are. It's just like very small, the smallest of the things you can do with these materials, but still worth something. Mm-hmm. So that we might already be at the limits of like divisibility for like things like gold or platinum.
But like, I think you raise a good point, and maybe you knew it or not. But what is worth, right? Like, what is the value of a U.S. dollar? We all say it's worth X because we think it is. Like, there's no backing to it. It's just as funny money as Bitcoin is. So there's not much difference between the two at the end of the day. Only that one side can print as much as they want, whereas the other side can't.
Yes, but depending on, no, you're right. So there's this mysterious person who owns $30 million or whatever in Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
are they able to, just as the Federal Reserve is able to change inflation or whatever by increasing the money supply or restricting the rate of the increase, like they have all these knobs and levers they can turn. Do you have anything that's like that with this shadowy organization or whatever?
No, because
whatever
you
I'm
can't.
just gonna call them Team Rocket. So Team Rocket and like they have $30 million in Bitcoin. Can they flood the markets and crash everything? And like,
No,
okay,
you can't counterfeit Bitcoin,
okay,
but you can trick the system sometimes. I want to say North Korea did something at the end of December that like crashed the market 8%.
okay.
But then it came right back like the next day. I think it has something to do with the exchanges themselves. Like I think it has something to do with like moving money around and verifying the funds in your account prior to the blockchain being fully written or something like that. So that the log of that transaction is never actually captured, but you get your money. There have been a couple instances like that. But every time it happens, it's caught and corrected in the software that does the exchange. There's nothing to do with the blockchain itself.
Okay. So if I own one Bitcoin, what does that mean? Like, is there a physical expression of this at all? Is it just some number that I have in my head? Like my Bitcoin's number is 10021 whatever. I mean,
I think there is some sort of a sign number to these coins, but it's just like a hexadecimal, impossible number for any human to comprehend.
So when you divide 10 of these Bitcoins, they all get new numbers?
I think
Or
it's
you
something. Yeah,
divide
I think it's something like that, where it's like a number. When you divide a number, it becomes 1.11. And you divide it again, it becomes like 0.0003. Well, same thing, only it's all like hexadecimal, unreadable math.
Oh my god. All right. So from the user experience is that I have a number or a bunch of numbers that I log. I climb Mount Gox, and then I deposit my Bitcoin tribute to the Bitcoin gods at the top of the mountain, and then I'm rewarded with fiat currency that doesn't mean anything anyway.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think I've got it, but there's just so much going on here in terms of
It's a lot to take in.
It is a lot to take in because it's a new thing that I don't think anybody understands.
Very little people understand it. But I would like to think that I understood it fairly well when I first tried to buy it when it was $5 a share, and my God, I should have done it.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Bill, I have an amazing investment opportunity for helium-3 moon mining.
I can use my Bitcoin profit to fund this thing.
Yes. So if you just buy my Helia coins, you too can get all that sweet fusion, right delivered straight to your door. Okay, so the thing that I was hoping for, and I don't think we're ever gonna get, is we've done some math, right? We've done more math than most people.
Right.
But when I look at that stuff, when I try to crack open that black box, I don't know what I'm looking at. Like that's the biggest barrier to me.
Is just Bitcoin. Trusting you don't know because you don't know what's happening.
Right, because theoretically this is all based off of math and it's all objective and everybody can do yada yada yada. But let's just say that maybe Kim Jong-un, maybe he's found a way to remove himself from that transaction. Maybe he's found a way to create fake Bitcoins. I mean, the thing is, if you don't understand, like what it is, like how can you understand what a counterfeit is? Because if you don't know what the original is, how can you know what a counterfeit is? Do you know what I'm saying?
Sort of.
I mean, we all know that if I hand you a piece of cardboard with a Sharpie on it saying, 100 $100 US, and I have like a smiley face that I've drawn in the middle of it. Okay, and I say, oh well, I just like 520s for this, please. You're gonna be able to very reliably identify that as a piece of counterfeit currency. Okay, you can't say the same thing about Bitcoin, because you don't know what a Bitcoin looks like.
I guess.
And if your user interaction of this is just like this incomprehensible hexadecimal number, well, what if there was an X where there should have been an F there? Or there is an X in hexadecimal, but what if there's an A where there should have been a D there? You don't know. You don't know any of this.
No.
Everybody's way over their head. Everybody's way over their head. But it doesn't matter if it's speculation, and that's where we're at right now.
Yep.
Right? I mean, we're both mentally there. We realize that what's going on with Bitcoin is a bunch of people, because I've had people at work come up to me and they've said, "Hey Tristan, what do you think about Bitcoin?" And at that point, when strangers are are not strangers, but coworkers are coming up to you and just like bringing it up like randomly, and neither of you are like financial geniuses or whatever, you're in a bubble. You're clearly in a bubble.
I think Bitcoin and cryptocurrency will always be in a bubble. There will always be the next major crash that destroys 70% of its value. But I also don't see it going away anytime soon. So if it crashes, it will always come back eventually, in theory. Because people are stupid, and there will always be these investors out there looking for the next quick buck, and that's going to drive the price up because people are going to keep dumping money into this even after it crashes. And this technology, I think, we're right on the cusp, right? It's all brand new, relatively speaking. And while I don't understand it, it seems, I don't want to say more safe than like dollars, but it's because of the blockchain is public and because it's based on math that can't be changed. There's something there about the security of the thing. It's not like somebody created their own physical coin and say, look, I'm only going to make 20 of these. Come buy my limited edition, whatever, and then sell more on the side. Like, there's something to the whole thing of it being based on math versus just something someone thought up.
Get the silver dollar astronaut landing on the moon and 9/11 coin for only 2 easy payments of $59.99. Sure to hold its value for many years.
Exactly. I also find it hilarious that people are choosing not to pay taxes on Bitcoin. It's like you're making gobs of money off of no investment early on. You sell millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, and you're not paying taxes on those gains. I can see why they're pushed to do that, because it is all anonymous, right? You don't know who these people are. But on the tail end of the exchanges, between the exchange and the person, you know that bank account and you know who that person is because you had to register with that exchange. Now the blockchain doesn't know who you are, but that exchange does. And so you think of Coinbase. Well, here's the thing: Coinbase is the biggest exchanger right now of cryptocurrency, and I think they said in 2016 there were 200,000 transactions of over $20,000 or more, and only 16,000 people ever pay taxes on those gains.
I kind of understand why you wouldn't do that, because you wouldn't pay taxes, because why would you?
Right, the IRS doesn't know.
The
IRS should be clamping down on the exchangers and saying, just like an SEC, when you buy a stock on E-Trade, they have to report that to the IRS, that transaction. So why can't you just go to these cryptocurrency exchangers and say, you must report your people's gains to the IRS? Problem solved, right?
I mean, they probably will, but it's gonna be maybe a 10-year process, and it's gonna, how I keep saying we're all going back to cable for the internet, crypto is going to be FEC or whatever.
Well, it will
I mean,
be, and it will.
SEC.
I think that will help with a lot of the volatility. I think it will help curve a lot of the criminal activity, and I think it will help stabilize this thing.
And then one day you can pull yourselves up by your bootstraps and ascend the high plains of Mount Gox and speak to the Bitcoin lords of the unnamed, the shadow realm.
I believe his name is called, I have it right here, Satoshi Nakamoto.
Oh my God.
Who is the dude who has like $10 billion in Bitcoin that nobody knows who he is? The original founder.
Okay, so do you know who he is? All right, you've seen Contact?
Yes.
Okay, he's the guy in the orbiting space station, like the billionaire.
Yes.
Why buy one when you can buy two at twice the price? That's him. That's what it doesn't matter. That's going to be him. When he gets older, they're going to launch him into space, and there's going to be a couple of ex-cosmonauts cleaning out his space bedpan, and that's who will rule us from Elysium. And I can't wait. This is yay Bitcoin. I mean, wow.
It's a fascinating phenomenon.
It is. It really is. And I feel like I wish I understood it better, but the thing is that there's so much meta around Bitcoin that
right. Well, that
is
was
very understandable.
That was also why I was hesitant to dive into this a little bit earlier, because I like the idea of it, right? I like the idea of throwing a little money out there just to see what will happen, And over the years, I've like I said, there's been many specific points in the past where I'm like, I should really throw $100 out there, or I should really, do this, do that, and I just never got around to it. Like Ethereum. Ethereum gained 100 times its value from last year to now. That means a $1,000 investment is $100,000 today. That's insane.
Yes.
But welcome to the world of cryptocurrency.
You could say that about everything. You could say that about Apple. You could say that about
yes.
Yahoo. You could say that about
Google.
Like Google, right? Like you could say, I don't know. I mean, you could say that going back 100 years about Standard Oil, right? I mean, there's
right. Well, there's always going to be that. I should have done that.
Yeah.
And who saw that coming?
This has been a presentation of Honey Sound Broadcasting, an affiliate of the Bilko Media Network.